All right, Photoshop. Now, normally when you use Photoshop, you use it to touch up things like, blemishes, pimples, sunburns.
Okay. I'm a GIMP user.
Are you?
Yeah.
It's, a lot of people use Photoshop to beautify things. What if you did the reverse? What if you made it so you could make something really attractive look really hideous? In fact, Alex Lindsay showed us just that earlier this week. I'm joined once again by Alex Lindsay, founder and head of Pixelcorp, that digital guild, I believe it is, and he's here to show us a really cool Photoshop tip on how to take a very attractive person and make them all hideous.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
All right.
So this all started with, this was actually a whole different project that I was working on with Amber MacArthur.
Ooh, Amber MacArthur.
The beautiful Amber MacArthur.
Yes.
And so I asked if, we were getting close to Halloween, and I asked if I could cause some damage.
Yeah.
And she approved. And
interesting.
So
she's very daring.
Yes, she is. Yes,
she also makes a good, mean set of s'mores, not scones.
I've been there. They're very tasty.
Yes, they're really good.
Yeah. So so this is the photo. What I did first was I desaturated a little bit. A lot of times when things look, if we want to make someone look a little evil, pull a little color out. We might put it back in later, but we want to get it a little bit more neutral,
a little more black and white.
Now, the next thing that I did is I kind of jumped into the channels. Now, what happens is if we look at the different channels that she has here, you'll see that there's a lot of there's different tones. And if I grab, let's say, the green channel, for instance, and I make a copy, I'm just going to drag it down here, and I increase the contrast. So I hit Command L, that's Control L on the PC. And if I bring up the contrast, one of the things you're going to see is there's a lot of detail in her face that we just didn't really see. So there's a lot more. You can bring out things that are almost invisible by simply increasing the contrast. So she really doesn't have any wrinkles, but she has just a little bit of skin, lines there, and so, but you can't see them in a normal reality. But if we bring up the contrast, that stuff starts to pop out. So the next step, if we go up to the next level here, what we have here is a piece of some concrete. So if I let me set this to normal, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. So we have, if I bring this all the way up, and I'll invert it here. Now what this is that's a big pile of concrete. I actually just literally took a piece of concrete. Now what I did is I smeared it a little bit. I just kind of pushed it around to make it look a little bit more like it was going along with her skin. So what I did here is if we send this back to normal and we bring it all the way back here, so I can actually go under Stylize and go to Emboss. And so this Emboss, what it's doing is it took all that munge that I had there,
the munge,
and it pops it up. So there's that piece. Now what I'm doing is I'm setting this to overlay. Now what overlay does is anything that's gray, like perfectly 50% gray, is unchanged. It doesn't do anything to it. Everywhere where it's brighter than gray, it screens or makes it brighter. Anywhere where it's darker than gray, it multiplies or makes it darker. So when I set this to overlay, what you can see is that I can still see her below it. But the darker areas are now creating shadows. The lighter areas are creating highlights. Now, this looks horrible, what I'm showing you right now. So what I'll do is I'll bring that back down. I'm going to bring that down to, in the 20%. All of these things are very subtle, but as we start to look at the skin, it really looks like it's
part of the skin.
Yeah, it's part of the skin. And so now what we do is we can go in here, we'll do the same thing. There's some more spots. And then here's another, this is actually chipped paint. So I put chip paint here to create these big, cutouts here, and lots of damage. Maybe a little too much here, but I can always get rid of that later if I don't like it. So now what I've done is I've really created this kind of crackly skin, a lot of stuff that doesn't look good with all these different layers of concrete. Now the next thing that I started working on were her eyes, and her eyes are, they look, with all this extra stuff on it, they look pretty nasty. But what I really wanted was that hole in the head kind of look. So what I did is I used paths, and we'll talk about paths again in another episode. But we have this. See these paths here? These are little paths that I drew. I wanted to draw them rather than using some kind of selection tool. Now I'm going to take this, and I am going to, if I hold down my Command key, I think it's Control key on the PC, and I click on it, it turns it into a selection. So what I did is I turned that into a selection, and I made it black. But what you really want is you want something that's black, and then you want to have, but you still want those eye highlights. So it's not like there's nothing there; it's that it's all black. This next layer up, if I go up here, see these eyes here?
Yep.
those eyes are actually her eyes. So what I did is I actually took that selection, this path here, and I copied her eyes. So if I go up here, you can I'll show you how this works. Now what I'm going to do here is if I increase the contrast, so I'll pull the contrast up like this, and I push this back like this, you can see these little highlights? Oh, they're all still there. So I can say, okay, here. Now what I can do is, literally it's nothing more complicated than then going back and erasing parts of it. And you can see how what I'm doing is I'm keeping the highlights in her eyes, which makes it kind of spooky.
And you're erasing to a bottom layer?
The bottom layer is black. That's that area I made black. Yes. So now I have her irises and her highlights across the top of her eyes, which gives it that presence. And that is pretty much it.
Wow.
So here you have her image, and this is the before.
Oh, lovely.
Lovely. And this is after.
She's been infected with something horrible. All right. Well, thank you very much, Alex. That's very, very disturbing, but also really cool. And, stay tuned. Future episodes, we hope to have Alex back again with even more Photoshop tips because, this stuff is really cool. And frankly, if there's any reason to get Photoshop, it's to convert someone from a highly attractive, beauticious photo to something so evil. And, back to me. Thank you, Alex. And if you want to see any particular Photoshop tip, if you have a particular question or something you want to know about Photoshop, send it to us at dl.tv@ziffdavis.com with the subject line, Photoshop. Photoshop.
Yeah.
That's actually, I know Amber. She's a very, very lovely person. It's just amazing how you can do that and make someone so creepy.
It's just a picture, man. Imagery.
It's
all in your mind.
It's what the stuff.